The time and the place for the December 12, 2022 school board meeting for the Marshalltown Community School District. Welcome to those of you joining us here in person. Welcome to anybody tuning in via the live stream, including apparently Adam Sodders. Oh, yeah. And welcome as well to anybody who might be watching us later on delayed broadcast. We'll do some introductions before we do the preliminary announcements. So board members here this evening, to my right, Zach Wall, Bonnie Lowry, and Jan McGinnis. To my left, Karina Hernandez. Joining me at the center table here is Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and Randy Denham, our board secretary. Our student school board member here this evening is Natalie Andrade, and Leah Stanley has now entered the building, so Leah's here as well. And I am Sean Heitman, the board president. We've got a pink sheet on the speaker's table for anybody who's here to give public comment. Just a reminder, you will be given 5 minutes to address the board. Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. It's also board policy to not respond to comments that are made in order to allow us to comply with the open meetings laws. With those announcements out of the way, would you all please join me in reading the mission statement for the Marshalltown Community School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And would you all please stand as you're able and join me in the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda for the evening?
Yes, in personnel, we had one additional resignation / retirement, Sue Ann Helder.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Lowry, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Adam?
Good evening. So for recognition tonight, first we want to give our very deep thanks to the multiple organizations here in town that helped make last week's Bobcat Parent Wellness Night and Watch Party a big success. I remember, Bonnie, I remember seeing you there. I think, we had a good turnout at the event itself, and also we had a very good turnout virtually. We had over 100 of our families join and take part in that. So that is pretty successful considering it was our very first one. We want to specifically thank JBS Marshalltown, who donated several frozen pork loins for folks to take home as door prizes. We want to thank our mental health partners, Center Associates and Gracie May Advocate Center, who have been, obviously, just like with every other project that has to do with social, emotional, and mental health, they've been great partners. La Coretta Mexican Grill provided excellent food that brought everybody together and helped create a community environment in MHS last week. ParentGuidance.org and the Cook Center created the content that went into last Wednesday's presentation and will go into the 5 upcoming presentations that we'll be holding. And we also want to thank our school and community members who volunteered and helped keep everything rolling last week at the in-person event. So yeah, thank you to all of those folks. And then also, we want to thank Farmers Savings Bank. The local branch here had a pretty significant effort underway to purchase and then donate to us more than 500 blue stocking caps. They're very high quality. They have our new M logo on them, and they've been distributed already to the 6 elementary schools in Lenahan. Those will be distributed equitably based on need as we enter, obviously, very cold weather season here. So yeah, that was very generous of them to donate those.
Questions or comments?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Adam.
much.
Turning then to the consent agenda, we've got minutes from the December 5 board meeting. Dr. Schutte, I believe there are a couple of items of note in personnel.
Yes, we've got two notable retirement/resignations for the end of this school year. One is Dan Tronis, who has served in public education for over 30 years, starting his career in Texas. Dan was first a physical education teacher in Marshtown. He served at Anson Middle School before coming to Marshtown High School. Dan uses his strength, woo, that is winning others over, to make connections with students. He builds students' confidence as they rely on their own resilience to demonstrate grit and determination to achieve their graduation goals. Dan is a caring school administrator who also looks out for staff. Annually, he's prepared staff breakfast burritos during Appreciation Week. He also hosts coffee bars, pastries, or holiday treats to honor those closest in serving our students. Dan has a servant heart, helping staff and students connect through softball, bowling, and esports. He's also dedicated to introducing our Latinx community to careers in the health field, as well as helping students with their own service orientations as they supported communities for the hospitals that they toured. Another big set of shoes to fill at MHS, as Dan will be greatly missed by students and their families, connections he's made over generations. That's from Jackie Wyatt. Also, today we received notification that Sue Enhelder will be retiring at the end of this year. Sue earned her undergraduate degree in economics. As the wife of a military veteran, Sue substituted in various school systems due to her husband's relocations. She substituted in the library and fell in love with this type of work. She completed her graduate program in library studies at Central Missouri State University. She joined the Marshtown Community School District at the start of the 2003-2004 school year. She assisted in our transition to one-to-one computers for students and then for staff. She has been instrumental in transitioning to digital services and customizing the MHS library to fit the instructional needs of staff as well as the supportive needs for students. You can find students studying, socializing, completing puzzles, and collaborative problem solving in the library. Sue has promoted the chess club to support student engagement and building professional adult-student relationships. Yet another big pair of shoes to fill at MHS. Congratulations to both Dan Tronis and Sue Enhelder.
Thank you. Looking at interagency agreements and contracts, we have an agreement with Kirkwood Community College for out-of-district college credit. An intent to contract with Central Rivers AEA for work experience instructional services at Marshalltown Learning Academy, and an agreement with Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines for the designated endowment fund of the Gene Seberg Endowment Fund. Looking at open enrollments, we have two, one for this year and one for next year. Randy, anything to note in bills or the financial report?
No.
Okay. And then looking at gifts, grants, and bequests, we have a donation from Marshtown Company in the amount of $2,500 for MHS Robotics, an anonymous donation in the amount of $15,960.56 for the Welcome Center at the Orpheum Theater, and a donation of 525 hats for students from Farmers Savings Bank with an approximate value of $5,000. Are there questions or comments about any of the items on the consent agenda?
That anonymous donation is a very specific amount. Is that,
was-
does that go towards, is it earmarked towards something specific within, like a gap that we were trying to fill within that building?
No, I think it's just related to the donor being purposeful in avoiding excessive taxation
Oh, okay.
on their, on their personal circumstance. So this is, I think, the second, for sure, maybe the third installment, and they've all been very precise numbers.
It's the second one.
Second?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I had that same question, Leah.
I would just add also with the Gene Seberg endowment that there might have been some confusion regarding what was reported to have occurred at Iowa Valley Community College District's board meeting in terms of the article, because we had some people, that were concerned about what it was happening. Similar to the Orpheum, the endowment is simply transitioning from Iowa Valley to the Marshtown Community School District. So nothing will change in terms of the administration of it, other than the school district now overseeing that.
Just a follow-up question. So MCC has gone through their protocol, correct, with their board for the endowment?
Correct.
Okay, and so now it's just a logistical thing with our board to
Right.
dot the I and cross the T?
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Stanley McGinnis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Nobody's on the pink sheet that I can see?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Kell, Mr. Glenn, you're up.
Awesome. Bring chairs up, or we just move when they come up?
Good evening. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having us. We are excited to highlight maybe something a little different tonight from Miller Middle School. So I'll let Dave kind of share our agenda and some of our goals and kind of why we decided to go this route this evening. But we're excited to be here, and at the end, we're obviously open to any questions that you might have for us tonight.
Right. So if you take a look at the agenda, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't feel like I probably really need to read it to you, but we're going to highlight some of our student voices tonight as we think about how we are going to help reach some of our goals. So if you look at the goals, this is from our attendance center plan that we went over with you earlier in the school year. All of the goals are still goals that we're working on, and we want to really kind of focus in tonight on those two blue highlighted goals where students will participate in at least 2 co-curricular activities, all students, and that all students can identify at least one trusted adult in the building. When we think back to last year, we were really close to that second one. We had 8 students, less than 1%, who failed to identify an adult that they trusted in the building. So out of the last year, we had 2 really big classes. So we had 850 some odd kids in the building, and so 8 of those did not identify a trusted adult. But that's 8 too many in our opinion. So we're going to continue to work on that. And really going to kind of work on personally connecting with all students, really through PBIS and Capturing Kids' Hearts. Really doing those things with fidelity, so that each student has the opportunity and the comfort to identify a trusted adult. If you look at some of our action steps, on the top we've got some instructional practices, and those are really centered around some of our academic goals that we're really looking for. One of the things I do want to mention through that our building leadership team is doing right now is we are taking a look at the NIET instructional framework. And those teacher leaders and with Kristen and I and our building leaders have really looked to identify, much like teachers will identify priority standards, we're really looking to identify some priority indicators so that teachers, as they're going through this and they're thinking about their instructional practices, we're going to say, if you're going to work at Miller, you're going to be really, really good in these things, in these areas. And so we're going to really focus on those. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to continue to look at and try to improve in some of the other areas. But some of the non-negotiables for us is that we're really going to push these several indicators that our building leadership thought would make high leverage impact on students. But as we're looking here today, we're really going to increase, some of our action steps for the PBIS and Capturing Kids' Hearts side of things would be improve attendance through increasing student involvement, relationship building, and making some positive contacts home to parents, and increasing the number of co-curricular options and the participation in those co-curricular options for students.
So as we shared, we, want kids to be involved with at least 2 co-curricular offerings. And last year we didn't quite meet that goal, but then our goal was also to have more offerings for students. So you'll see on the right-hand side is our extracurriculars, the ones that we're probably most familiar, right? Football and cross country and basketball and wrestling. On the other side, we have kind of our co-curricular offerings. So just some different things that maybe you don't know about that we have to offer. And we're really excited because instead of hearing Dave and I talk about some of these co-curricular offerings, we brought some of our rock stars to just share a little bit about these. So some new ones this year are Dungeons and Dragons. If you know what it is, you know. And if you don't, you don't. But it is an amazing group of boys that come in early in the morning. Some of them are here by 7:15 to play this game in Miss Edel's room, and she's learned a lot. Pokemon Club was started last year, and again, I think that's one. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. Mariachi Band is not really a co-curricular. It's more of an exploratory, but we wanted to put that in there because we're just really excited about it. Another one that was new this year is Solera Adelante, and we have a student here to talk about that. And also Miss Meckley, who's really been instrumental in bringing that to Marshalltown. So we're really excited to highlight some of these co-curricular offerings, and the students are just going to kind of share what it is and what it kind of does for them and their connection to Miller. So it says up there we're going to start with Faye, but we're going to actually start with Rory and Emma. We'll start with our 8th graders. So Rory Piscatelli and Emma Clausen are representing our student leadership. They're both also involved with some other things, so they'll share a little bit about that.
Saddle up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Rory. I'm in 8th grade, and I am in CSL, which is Bobcat Student Leadership Club. And so far what we've done, and we've done 2 Spirit Weeks. We've also had a canned food drive, and we're also working on hallway decorating this week, and the previous 2 weeks too.
My name is Emma Clausen, and I'm an 8th grader at Miller Middle School. I'm a part of Student Leadership Club, and so far this year, we've also planned and helped with the holiday store through the PBIS store with donations from the community. And that's pretty much most of all the things we've done this year.
I heard about this club through my best friend, Caitlin Bear. She was in it first because she was at Lenahan and she did Ricochet. And she wanted to continue doing it, but they didn't have Ricochet at Miller, so there was PBIS store, which now this year is a separate thing for Bobcat leadership. And I learned about it from her, and about halfway through the school year, I decided I wanted to do it because that's when Christmas started, and they started planning all these fun events, so now I get to do it again this year.
Leadership Club has really helped me through Miller because it's gotten me closer to most of the teachers, and they've trusted us more through the other students. And then also during WIN, we have our meetings that will help other students throughout the school district.
Our mission for Bobcat Leadership is to get Miller students and future Miller students more involved in our community and school community. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of doing that through the hallway decorating because we're connecting the Bobcat Leadership students with just the students in general that aren't in many clubs.
Any questions for these guys before they run away?
And you can wait till the end if you have questions
Ooh.
for all of them.
All right, we'll hold them all.
Yeah, because someone else might answer it later. All right, thank you, girls.
Thanks, girls.
Nice, thanks.
All right, next we're going to do Aya. There she is.
Hello, my name is Aya Karim. I'm going to be representing Science Bound today. Science Bound basically is a group for people that are a group of the purpose of Science Bound is to help students coming from different backgrounds have the opportunity to pursue an A-STEM or education career. A perk of joining this club, other than being very experienced in science, is that you get a full tuition scholarship to Iowa State. This club meets every Wednesday. There's about like 15 people in our Miller group. And it's impacted my connection with Miller by bringing me closer with the teachers that are in that group and like my friends in that group. And an experience I really enjoyed was our retreat to Boone. We learned a lot about it. Thank you for having me.
Giselle? Giselle is representing a few, so. That's okay.
My name is Giselle Vargas, and I'm representing Mariachi and Alexito. Mariachi is a Mexican culture music where you can play different types of instruments like violins, guitars, guijuelas, and guitarrón, and trumpets. Also, this can so far I like about mariachi because it helps a lot of students understanding different types of music about our culture and Mexican culture. It also helps us reunite and agree on what songs we like and what we agree on. And Alexito is a program where it's about the college and and different scholarships that you can get in different universities. 2 months ago, we went to UNI where we could learn about all the college and dorms and everything you can get from UNI.
And Giselle and her family also participated in Salir Adelante, which was a 6-week kind of like, I don't know, family crash course, I think, in just student success and how families can support their students throughout middle school, high school, and then helping them get to college. So we met Monday nights for 6 weeks from about 5 until 8 o'clock. So it started with kind of dinner, and then then it kind of branched into 2 separate spots, and their families would stay and kind of have their own session presented completely in Spanish. And it talked about, so like some of the sessions included just how to support your student or gaining knowledge about what is like classes offered at the high school and college and FAFSA and things like that. So just kind of like helping support families as they're supporting their students. And then like we would go to a student session and like sometimes they included things like how important is GPA and, what can you, getting involved in things and, preparing yourself for life after high school. So it was a really, really cool program that we partnered with the 4-H Extension Office with. And we're hoping to also, we had about 9 families this fall. It was our first time doing it. And we're hoping to bring it back again in the spring to include more families. And it's just kind of like supporting families as they support their students at school. So we loved having Giselle and her family there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Faye, and today I'm going to talk about Garden Club. I first got involved in Garden Club through Franklin Elementary because my brothers were in it and I found interest in it. So once I was able to, I joined the club and I've been in it ever since. We meet once a month, and during the spring and summer times, we'll meet once a week. Currently, we have been working in the greenhouse to fix it up and plant plants that are able to survive during the winter and to plan ahead for summer and spring. We have 8 members currently right now. We're hoping to get more. And right now, we've already planted 1 plant, and next time we will be working on what we're gonna do for the winter and for the springs. This helps. This is also a good way to feel kind of like part ownership over the school grounds because we're working on cleaning up and making it look nice with like the weeds and the plants. What we do with our produce is we donate it to the food bank and other families that need it. And I think that's it.
That's a lot. Thank you. Yeah, nice job.
Now you get a couple pinch hitters.
Yes, so, and if you have more questions about Garden Club, the sponsor's actually here too, so.
Needed a sponsor, and Faye was able to round one up. Some other.
So Armando Negrete Garcia is an 8th grader and he was unable to make it and he does Pokemon. So he did his little write-up. So I will try to be Armando as best as I can. Hello, my name is Armando. Not my name. I'm in 8th grade and I'm here to represent Pokemon Club. Pokemon is a certain type of game of strategizing and fun and also competitive at the same time. The time when we meet is on Mondays after school, but sometimes we change it up, but not too often. To make people know how many people there are about 21 people in the group, and the main purpose of this club is to have fun and put your mind to work. Though if there's people that don't want to play, trading is an option for them. If people maybe are new and don't know anything, we teach them along the way for them to be here. For my experience from all of this has made me more strategic in things like games and focus. And this also makes new relationships with the new students that join and make them active. Last, if you don't know Pokemon, they're creatures to battle in tournaments or trade. So that is Armando. And then Cole was representing Writers Club, and unfortunately he was ill today. But he would have been a treat for you today. But we're so appreciative of all of our students coming. We really just wanted them to highlight some of the really good things that they're involved with. So I guess now if you've got some questions for them. Yeah.
And I can try to channel Cole if
Right.
you have Writers Club questions.
I know it was mentioned that 15 students were currently in Science Bound. Is that typically the number that we have in 8th
I think
grade?
it's kind of limited as well.
Pretty close,
And
yeah.
there, and you have to start at at a younger age, and once you're there, then you're just kind of tracked through. So I think that's pretty typical, yeah.
And that scholarship they mentioned, I think, is contingent on staying in Science Club all the way
Right.
through high school, so.
Meeting the
Or Science Bound,
requirements.
excuse me. Yeah, yep.
Other questions from anybody?
Sure, Rory and Emma. How will you share the opportunity of the Student Leadership Club with others? So next year, there'll be more students to enter in. How will you share that information so you can
recruit?
Well, we planned on having 7th graders join, so far it's just 8th graders. We planned on having 7th graders join in December, but we kind of fell behind on that. And
There's
so
January.
I'm guessing January and February.
Right, that's when we were gonna do it.
In January and February, we're planning on bringing in 7th graders that we know will work hard and continue to bring on and keep our goal staying. And then I think that it's about learning it in your 7th grade year so you can teach it to other people in your 8th grade year.
You can recruit your members.
Sounds like you have a plan.
What you guys do with your flash meetings too. This week are bringing in people that aren't part of SLC, but they kind of see what that is. So I don't know if Emma, you want to maybe explain the flash meeting?
So the flash meetings are for our hallway decorating that we've hosted one every day for 15 minutes during the beginning of when we go down to the hub and we meet with the leaders. The leaders are the students who are already in Bobcat leadership, and then the teachers chose an ambassador to relay all the information back to their wins to help them get decorating. So that really encouraged the ambassadors to pay attention and learn what it's like to be a Bobcat leadership student.
And really that's, they're releasing that responsibility away from the adults who, are all worried about all kinds of other little things. And so as this is going on, really taking a lot of that ownership for the success of this project is really driven and carried out by the students, which is really cool to see.
I have another question too. Let me think here. I have to formulate it. Is it Aya? Aya? Yeah. Are parents involved at all with Science Bound? And if so, how do you get them involved so they know what you're working towards?
There are some like student and parent meetings, and the way they get involved is like helping out with like projects. And like right now we're working on a science fair project, and my mom's helping me out with that a little bit.
Awesome. And so the information about your opportunity post-secondary then is shared during that time where you have parent meetings. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we're going to have a full presentation on Science Bound at the January meeting.
Good.
Dr. Campbell, I think, is coming here.
That's awesome. That's great.
Any other questions for our students?
What instrument does Giselle play? Mariachi?
For right now, I'm playing the violin.
And Giselle, when did you start playing the violin?
Yeah, that's the fun part.
I started playing the violin back in 5th grade.
Okay, at Lenahan?
Yeah.
Great.
Any questions?
What type of plants, garden plants, are we planting?
The plants that we've planted already or will plant?
Both.
Well, so far we've planted milkweed outside, so we're hoping that will survive through the winter. And we made a list of the fruits, the vegetables, and the others.
And Faye, why do we plant milkweed? I mean, we don't think milkweed.
Because it attracts the butterflies to help pollinate.
Right.
Monarch.
Yes. So it's a part of the monarch migration. They love
Awesome.
milkweed, so it's good to have them help them survive.
And Christine, it's part of Iowa State Extension, right?
And it has a phenomenal scent. You'll be really glad you planted that.
I had to go on my memory banks because when she mentioned Greenhouse and Miller, I'm like, oh, we've got one at the high school. And then I remembered that way up high. And many years ago, they wouldn't let us students go in there, so you should feel really good about being in there.
Well, it's been a labor of love, right? I mean, to try to get it back to
The working condition.
status, yeah.
Now, when I was there, the students did, when I taught at Miller, they did starter plants. So we teachers could buy our annuals and our tomato plants and from the school. Yeah. So have you looked at anything along that line? Are you thinking of selling the plants?
I don't really think we've thought about that, but I think that would be a good idea to try.
Along down the line, our goal is to start vegetable seeds in the greenhouse, so then we can give those out to the elementary schools for their garden clubs, and that'll reduce the overall overhead cost, so that we can use those funds to put into other areas of garden club.
Oh, good idea.
That is a good idea. Got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Any other questions for our students? We hope that hopefully you learned something new about some of our clubs and organizations, because it is such an important aspect of our Miller is such a unique 2-year time that we get with them, and we really just want to focus on them being connected and having something. So I'd love to give our kids a round of applause, because that was really hard. That's some hard stuff.
Yeah. So we just want to leave you with just sort of a summary of, we recently sent out a thought exchange to all of our parents, just really asking about what's been going on at Miller that you think is going well, or what do we need to improve on. Honestly, if you don't ask, you don't necessarily always know. And this word cloud that you see up here are some of the bigger the word, the more time that it was mentioned in some of the responses. We had 183 participants, so 183 people participated in our thought exchange. 127 thoughts were shared, and of those thoughts, 2,878 ratings were made. So when other people said, yeah, I agree with that thought, or I don't agree with that thought, and it's a 5-point Likert scale that they can agree on. Obviously, the number one big word up there would be our hallways. Concerns about supervision in the hallways, crowded hallways, students acting poorly in the hallways, students being just crowded and fearful as they're walking through halls. So that's obviously something that we're going to work on. We're going to take through that with current expectations for our students in the hallways. We've got some new signage that our PBIS team put together. We have, that's one of our expectations for all of our teachers, is to be present and visible in the hallways during passing time. Some are, get out to their doors. Some, by proximity wise, are able to get out into some more of the common areas and just kind of keep the crowd moving. If you're familiar with Miller, there's basically 2 crossroads on each of the main 2 floors, and those are big bottleneck areas, and so it's always good to have a couple of people with close classrooms who are close to kind of get out and keep the crowd moving and keep them getting on their way to class. But, really when you think about PBIS and the fidelity of how you do that, we're going to have to continually teach and reteach what those expectations for the common areas are, and then even give kids an opportunity to practice those. So part of our PBIS team, when they get together, we review some of our behavior data, our minor behavior data, and we look and try to identify what are some hot spots, where do we need to go back and have a lesson and reteach those expectations and get out with the kids and practice those, be that, lunchroom expectations, whether it's hallway expectations, whether it's before and after school expectations, or whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we continue to do that. We did have some positives through the survey. Several thoughts were shared about how parents appreciate the communication home from teachers, both when there's a challenge and things that they're proud of that parent's child for doing in school. And the course offerings that we have, some of our exploratory classes, parents both liked those, but they had some suggestions about them as well. And so we're going to try to figure out, the logistics side of it is something that we're going to have to put our scheduling team together to try to figure out how we can make that a better experience for kids. But it's one of the things that we're going to look at based on the information shared.
Questions from anybody? Comments?
Well, since we actually had the parent bring up the block scheduling at the last board meeting, did they have much comment on that?
Yeah, there were a couple of thoughts that were shared, but I think they were well down the list as far as the 50s, like in the 50s out of the 127, so they're in the bottom half of that. but we had both positive and negative comments on block scheduling. Some parents really like it, some parents don't. I think we would have a similar thing if we would have said, tell me about a 7 or an 8 period day.
So you didn't get a feel as to which way they were leaning, or?
I mean, it wasn't a red flag. I mean,
Okay.
Right.
Kind of balanced.
Right. I mean, some people said they really liked it, and when it was just like we said, it was some of the block scheduling comments were far down in the ratings.
And I think, it's some of the things that you work through whenever you do anything along those lines. Like, there are some people that thought that maybe that extended period of time isn't used as effectively as it could be in a block. And that's something that we're aware of and we're working on with our teachers. And there are also others that, a common thread is, I might have a class on a Thursday and I don't have it again until Monday. So that's a long stretch. And so you really have to, as you're planning instructionally, you need to think about, how do I make sure that students have what they need going into that stretch so that we don't have to spend a lot of time backing up. But there are also some that really appreciated the opportunity for guided practice within a classroom, within that one class period, so that when they leave, think about a traditional classroom, you might watch a teacher, design or deliver a lesson. They see the teacher do a couple examples, and then they might have a chance to do a couple together, and then it's like you're off on your own. It's like what we would call a sudden release of responsibility. And within that block, a little more time, people appreciate the opportunity to have a more gradual release. They see the teacher do it, they do it together, they do it with each other before they're ever asking to do it alone. And when done effectively, what you see is you're answering fewer questions after homework.
Right.
The
And
next
you're having
day,
fewer
because they've already
failures
had-
during the homework.
Right, they understand, they're ready to do it independently.
It's really a very different style of teaching. And as you said, it takes some practice to make it work as effectively as it can.
Yep, and that's the power of our PLCs. Our PLCs are really working on that side of it.
On the flip side, we did a thought exchange with our teachers as well, and we were more specific and asked them if they liked block or not, and that was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you do get, if you do it right, you get a lot less failed assignments that kids have to redo. If they have to come in for extra help.
Right, agreed.
Leah, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to have you explain how a thought exchange works, just so that the
Magic.
board kind of understands when you're saying these rating,
There's some magic
these
in there.
ratings,
Yeah.
and
So-
how does that actually, how does
Right.
that happen?
So you start by just asking a general question, and you really don't want to be too specific. This is the thought exchange people talking to me as I'm putting together a survey question. You don't want to be too specific, but you also don't want to necessarily ask too many versions or too many options. So 1 to 2 options on a question. People put in any thought they want, and after a certain number of thoughts have been shared, then it reaches the algorithm or whatever, comes back to the parents and asks them to start rating other people's thoughts. So then from that, you can kind of see what thoughts are of importance to all the people who are answering or which aren't. So based on how they're rated.
That helps a lot with understanding the answer they were giving me, because I was not getting that.
Right, yeah, so, yeah.
So like
that-
if
that's
Leah
something
goes
that
in
was far
and
down
she
the list.
likes the thought, she's going to give it 5 stars. And then the next one, she's like, I don't agree with that. I'm going to give it 1 star. And so then there's where that ranking goes. So then, the more stars you would get, the higher it would
So what you're
rank.
saying is that this was not a huge concern.
Right.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
that's.
Exactly.
yes.
8 of the top 10 were related to hallway safety, and the
Right.
other 2 were saying how wonderful the teachers are.
Right.
Right. Oh, okay.
So that for us is,
So that's why hallway is in such very large print.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I get that.
yep.
Yeah, I think the benefit of thought exchange is that it minimizes the opportunity for one person that has a particular thought to kind of dominate or to give the belief that it's a bigger issue than it may really be universally across the people that respond to it. The thing that I would say, with either the middle school or high school relative to block schedule Yeah, it's good to hear that staff are generally supportive of it. I think the big question is what can we do or what do we need to do to continue to support them to teach in this different
Right.
construct as effectively as they can, because obviously a 80-minute time frame needs to be broken up into a lot of different components, even if they're related to the same topic, in order just to sustain the attention of middle school students. And it's not that much different at the high school either. But I think the thing that we've heard since we went to it in kind of emergency circumstances was people figuring out how to use that time as effectively as possible.
Right. And that really goes to just, I guess this is a Dave Glenn philosophy that, any schedule in and of itself isn't really going to do anything to impact student achievement. It's what you do within that schedule that is really going to make the difference. And so whether that's a traditional schedule, whether that's a block schedule, whether it's a 4x4, whether it's modified flexible, whatever you want to throw out there, it's whatever you do within that schedule as a teacher that's going to make the difference, not the schedule itself.
Anything else?
Any other questions for us?
Thank you, guys.
We thank you guys so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, students, for coming and giving us your time.
And parents for bringing them.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, on a snowy evening.
Jackson, Natalie, you guys ready?
Hello. So this is a report. So MVP leaders prepare freshmen for their semester finals. So our lesson plan was based on kind of preparing students for their first finals and navigating them through what the schedule is like, what it means for their overall grade. But most importantly, we kind of answered their questions, validated their concerns, while also assuring them they'll get through it just fine. And through it all, we were really transparent with our journey in high school and areas we struggled, but how we eventually found what works best for us and gave them advice to kind of do the same. And they seem better after that, less worried. So this is a really key event. MVP leaders visited DMAC to better MVP leadership throughout Iowa. And here are some of the pictures of the conferences. So Mrs. Furlong explained they were asked to go present how they incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into the program and kind of to model how to do the same in their schools. So far, Marshalltown has kind of paved the way in doing so that's why they've been asked. Later in the school year, Ankeny delegation will come for further training and find ways to further develop their curriculum.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is good.
All right, so tonight, the Kindness Project is showing the 2018 version of The Grinch at 7:30 at the high school in the Aux Gym. And it's open to all of the high school students. And now for some sports. Bobcat boys basketball has a record of 5-1. They play Des Moines East at home on Tuesday. Bobcat girls also have a record, or they don't also have a record. They have a record of 0-7, and they also play Des Moines East at home on Tuesday. Boys bowling has a record of 4-0, and girls bowling has a record of 3-1, and they both play Des Moines Roosevelt on Tuesday at Roosevelt. Girls wrestling has a meet at West Marshall against West Marshall and Gilbert on Tuesday. Boys wrestling has a home meet on Thursday against Des Moines Roosevelt. And boys swimming has a meet on Tuesday at Newton against Newton and Grinnell. That's it.
Any questions?
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah.
On Thursday night, there's a performance of A Christmas Carol. Who's doing that at the Performing Arts Center in the auditorium?
I'm guessing that would be Mrs. Forwine, and I'm guessing you're referring to a play?
I think so. I just saw it I saw it on Facebook. And then I also think it might have been in the paper
Oh.
tonight,
Do
but
you-
it's a 6
I had the
o'clock.
same question when I saw it in the activity listings.
Yeah,
Can you recall the name of it?
A Christmas
Christmas
Carol.
Carol.
A Christmas
It's-
Carol.
It's a play. It's a donation
Yes.
performance. Mrs. Forwine's group?
Mrs.
Okay.
Forwine.
Well, it's 6 o'clock on Thursday.
Will we see you there?
Performing Arts Center. I think you might.
Okay, good. Because I think I might be on stage too.
That's awesome.
I think there was one of the boys bowling didn't get a 300 this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. I have Erica Fenders with me tonight. She has some information to share with you about some CKLA or elementary literacy trade books that are now available. And we've been kind of hemming and hawing around those ESSER Learning Loss dollars and how we can spend the funding in a really purposeful way that can impact our students, especially around literacy and trying to continuously close those student achievement gaps. So we're really excited about what we've found. And when I say we, I mean Erica. She did a very nice job investigating and kind of digging through the different available resources that are out there. And we've had Theron come up with some awesome ideas as well, but we felt like this one maybe trumped some of his. So we're here tonight to share the exciting literature that's available, and very excited to share some of the details. So I'll hand it off to you, Erica.
Great. Buying books is like my favorite thing to do. This is really exciting. Okay, that bottom thing is a presentation, I think. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of background about, you can go down one more. Sorry. A little bit of background on CKLA. That is our elementary curriculum for literacy. We implement that in grades K through 5. When we originally selected this, we started with 10 resources, and this one came out on top of those 10. It's really high quality. We've been really pleased with that. We've been using it since the interrupted 2019-20 school year. And this year, we're also piloting those materials at Woodbury in kinder and 3rd grade, because this year, the Spanish version of those materials became available too, which is really exciting. We're really excited about that too. So this purchase that we are looking at tonight is related to, so we have 2 proposed purchases. This is the first one, the CKLA trade book and trade book collection and trade book guides. And these are tied to our curriculum, but they are trade books. So they're like children's literature that you can buy, on Amazon or whatever. So the trade book collection is the first chunk of books we'd like to buy. That includes 1 book per unit for the kinder through 2nd grade knowledge domain, and that's just their word for the knowledge building strand of the program. They're called domains. So 1 book per unit that's intended to introduce students to that topic, that knowledge topic. They've been carefully selected to engage students, pique their curiosity, and build some of that background knowledge before they get into the really deeper content in the curriculum. And then those are all tied to trade book guides. So every book that we would purchase also has a guide that looks like this on the right. It is basically a lesson plan for the teacher to use that focuses on essential questions, key vocabulary, connections to the text, writing prompts, things like that, that really help the students to engage with the text and understand it and launch into the unit. So this group of texts we would be using with kinder, first, and second grade. And it's connected to that knowledge strand. And over on the right, you can see those are the K2 knowledge topics. So it's very, pretty heavily nonfiction, but in kinder, plants, farms, Native Americans are some of those topics. First grade has astronomy and fairy tales too. And then in second grade, insects, the U.S. Civil War. So it's pretty heavy content. And these are children's literature books that tie to that and launch that. So we're proposing this would be a total cost of about just over $10,000, and we would be using Title III funds for that purchase.
Can I add one
Yeah.
thing? So those resources are actually not available above second grade. So if you're wondering why not propose that we would purchase third, fourth, fifth, they're really only available for that specific resource, kinder through second.
And this is for small group instruction?
This is for whole group instruction. So this is like it's a trade book that would be used whole group to launch the content of each unit, essentially.
Okay, I think I saw this. Do you have some sets already, full class sets of a trade book that the students have used? Seems like I've seen this used.
Well, this is tied to, so what this like, what am I trying to say here? Visual here on this screen is tied to our actual curriculum. That's
Right.
the core curriculum. Yep.
So are these electronic, we have like electronic rates to the copies of the books, or you're buying a set for each classroom?
A set for each classroom.
So you're buying a full
Actual
class
physical
set for each
book.
classroom.
Okay. That's,
Not, we're buying, so it's
Correct.
one, so essentially for this purchase, there are, I believe, 11 kindergarten units. So we would be purchasing every teacher 11 trade books that tie to each one of those units. And every first grade teacher, 11 trade books.
The one copy each
Yes.
of 11 books.
Correct.
So they're like read alouds.
Yes. Yep.
Now I get it.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this.
Yep.
Okay.
Like a mentor text.
Yes.
All right.
that you can refer back to.
Sorry, I should have led with that.
Okay, purchase number 2.
Yeah. Purchase number 2, also read aloud, so I'll just say that. This is a bigger chunk of books. So this is also a carefully curated list of authentic texts that tie to, at K2, that same knowledge domain. And then every 3rd through 5th grade unit, which also has a real strong knowledge component. But for this list, it's 5 to 7 books per unit. And that's more for, teachers could use it as a read aloud, and they can also have just a little classroom library in their room where kids can just kind of extend their knowledge about that topic throughout the unit. So if we go to the next one. So this is, this visual is partially what I just showed, but also includes 3rd through 5th grade. So this is every unit at kindergarten through 5th grade that these books would tie to. These books can be extension, enrichment. They're just really meant to help students even more fully understand the knowledge that they're gaining in each unit. They were carefully selected to include a wide range of backgrounds and cultures. And often those are cultures that students maybe aren't as familiar with. It's a really wide range, which is excellent. So just kind of helping to continue growing their understanding of others and appreciating diversity. That was a big part of this list creation as well. And then you can go one more. So this purchase would be for kindergarten through 5th grade students because this extends past that K2 knowledge portion of the program. But it is connected to that topical understanding is really what this is focusing on. So this would be a total cost of just over $63,000, and we would be using ESSER learning loss funds for this. And this, I really wish I would have written this down, but this ranges from about 47 books per classroom to like 60 books per classroom, all tied to those.
That was in the news and notes.
Okay,
So if you guys saw that.
So these books are really meant to beef up background knowledge, which in the long run beefs up comprehension.
Yep, exactly. Yes.
And it's a different set for the K through 2 than the first set of books.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
The first set of books is kind of like more developed for like teaching a full lesson based on the book. And then the second set is more about exposure to the ideas in other ways. Yep.
Other questions?
That's a good idea.
I was trying to add up in my head. I was going through looking at the number of books. We're talking like thousands and thousands of books, right?
It's a lot of books.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. Which is
And
why
books
I'm
for every
smiling.
classroom, which is nice.
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
So what's the lead time on getting all these books delivered?
Well, currently they're kind of in carts waiting for like by grade level. I don't know.
Well, I think this is the discussion. We come back and seek approval in January. And then
we can
we
be
would
ready to
move forward
order.
with the purchase, and it's basically as quickly as CKLA can get the resources to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was on as an action item on the agenda. I mean, it is on as an action item.
If the board's
If
comfortable
the
with
board
that,
wants to take action.
I think that was, our intention
be a
was to
real
present
Christmas
and then
present. That would
have
be a real
action taken
Christmas
back
present. Christmas present.
at the latter meeting, but if the board's comfortable taking action tonight, that's fine.
What other, I mean, do we have other options that we're teeing up to use these ESSER funds that this purchase is competing with? Or
Well, let me
this is
tell
the
you, since Sean brought it up.
recommendation- This is the recommendation for the ESSER funds from the district.
Oh, this is the recommendation at
Okay.
this current time.
It's important, we've been really thoughtful of one-time purchases with ESSER dollars. We know that we have a timeline to spend them by June of 2024, and if we find ways to spend those dollars that are reoccurring, then we really create a cliff that we have to be responsible for by 2024. And I really do genuinely think that these will integrate really well into the elementary literature that we have in place. And he does have great ideas as well. Yep.
Well, where you have teachers planning together at the same grade level and administering lessons at the same time, it's really nice for them to each have their own set of books.
Yep.
It really is. I think it's got a lot to be said for it.
Me too.
They're going to be thrilled, our teachers.
So is there a motion to approve the purchase of K2 CKLA trade book collection in the amount of $10,038.41 using Title III funds, and to purchase K5 CKLA trade books in the amount of $63,673.62 using ESSER learning loss dollars as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Absolutely. Have fun.
Thank you.
Your books.
Thank you.
It's exciting, yeah.
I get to stay.
And I noticed that Mr. Goslinga did not.
My right-hand man's not here. He's not feeling well. So
He should
I'm
probably just be
solo.
home then.
Okay, so there's not a lot, I don't know if you read through some of the information that we shared in news and notes. It's not a lot of changes for our at-risk and dropout prevention budget for this upcoming school year. You'll see what the criteria really is for an at-risk student. We have approximately 40% of our students that currently fall under that at-risk criteria, and honestly, that percentage continues to grow. We have a new way to really measure what an at-risk student is through Infinite Campus called the early warning system, and that really does help us to identify students that are at risk, that maybe like what meets the eye doesn't really show up as at risk, but it really measures and balances all the different criteria that you see up there on that slide. So we have some guidelines that we always want to be thoughtful of with at-risk funding. Paulette was wonderful in sharing that with us, and now we've inherited Randy, who is equally as an expert. We have to be thoughtful with any changes that we make with our at-risk funding because it's lagging about 2 years behind. So when we propose no changes to you, that almost guarantees that funding stream or the spending authority is going to remain very similar. And you'll see that on the next slide, I believe. So you'll see 4 years of spending authority listed there, and we're totaling very similar amounts of funding, which is excellent, knowing that these at-risk students are definitely in need of our support. So you can go ahead. So you might wonder, where does that $1.5 million, where's that attributed in the district? That actually funds close to 32 FTE staff. We've had several school resource specialists come up and support us through the building presentations or different presentations that I know we've had on our board agendas. We have our alternative programs, both MLA and peer are supported through at-risk funding. The JCLs, Eric Whedon, I know is somebody who would probably be familiar to you. And then we have both math literacy interventionists as well. And then we also have some outside contracts. These are the same, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, mental health agencies. We know how important that is. IJAG, incredible program for preparing at-risk students for the workforce. MICA, and then Net High is one that maybe you're not as familiar with, but it's really a small proportion of our students who engage with online learning, and it's different than Edmentum because Edmentum is asynchronous, where Net High can support students with certified teachers. Oh. It's pretty expensive, so you want to be really thoughtful about who really needs that track, but at the same time it can support a very few amount of our at-risk students who have really not seen success in any other pathway. And then we know Edmentum is just a wonderful learning management system that supports MBA, supports MLA. We have some middle school students who try to dabble with it. We actually do have some dual language students at the middle school who are using it for Spanish 1 as well. But that purchase is wonderful because as soon as you have it, you can disperse it in whatever way that you need it. So it gives us a lot of options. All right, so we're really planning for continued programming for the fiscal year 24, and we want to continue to support our school resource specialists, those positions. We have one in every single elementary, one in every building as well. We have no other recommended changes, and we want to also just kind of put that plug out there that our ESSER learning loss funds, or just ESSER funds in general, will be deadline of June of 2024. So next time Eric and I come to present with you, we're probably going to be really thoughtful. With Randy, we'll put our heads together around how does at-risk potentially absorb some of what we've deemed ESSER or been able to allocate to ESSER. And we really won't know those details until we get closer to that deadline. But for now, that formula is stable because we're keeping things exactly the same. I think one more slide. Oh, yes. So I think we've heard from Jackie on several occasions that we've had a dip in our graduation rate, and you'll see that reflected in this data. From 19 to 20, you might think, well, that's awfully high for COVID to be interrupting. That was interesting because I think the state was shut, or in March we shut down, and then students were kind of given almost a lot of leeway to be able to finish up some of those assignments and get through to graduation, which was great. So the year that the graduation rate really took the hit was the following year. You know, the students or the juniors that came back and had to recoup some of that learning. And then some truly just did not come back. So we have a graduation rate there for 2021 of 83%. Hoping that that continues to go upward rather than downward. And I know we're putting a lot of structures in place to support that, as you've already seen with all the FTE. And then our dropout totals, you'll see there's a record there. We just certified that on Friday, and 21-22 is 104. So we went upward with our dropout totals as well for the 21-22 school year.
What was the 21-22 graduation rate?
We don't have it yet.
You don't have that
It's
one.
always lagging. Yep. So we'll always know our dropout totals before we know our graduation rate. And that has to be like certified. We could probably give you an approximate, but we won't ever certify, like give a public announcement until we know from the state what the certified percentage is.
And isn't it true, Shauna, when we're looking at graduation rate and dropout numbers, they're two different entities completely. Your dropout numbers would be your students 9th through 12th grade, not just your seniors.
Okay, I was trying to figure out, how can
So-
that be? Okay.
So when we're looking at these numbers, you're not comparing apples to apples. It's apples to oranges, and they have different, even if you saw not just the total, but the percentage for dropout rate, it looks crazier than
And
this.
every
so.
class size is a different class size as
Correct.
well. So if you're trying to correlate between the number of dropouts compared to the graduation rate percentage.
Can't do it.
I already did that and found it didn't work. Then she explained it before I could ask you.
Yeah, so it's 4 grades within the dropout total.
Yeah, I really do think, and I've heard this from the high school, we're feeling more that the adolescents are more engaged with us, where it took some time to bounce back from that independence. And we've got a couple high schoolers over there who probably remember what hybrid learning was. And yeah, exactly. So we've got a couple, it's farther back in the memory than where it was when we tried to jumpstart. And we just want to keep continuing to work hard and get these numbers going back the right direction.
Shauna, part of your recommendation, you had continued to support SRS positions in each elementary, but you didn't mention like the rest of the FTEs that are funded through at-risk, like the juvenile court liaisons.
Oh, yes.
So
Yep, we want to
are
continue.
you really
yes.
saying no change
No
is what
change.
you're really
Yes.
saying?
No
Okay.
change.
And
Yeah,
then
I
with
think
that,
the special attention of the SRS is just because a year or two ago, we had halftime SRSs serving the 6 elementaries, and so we expanded that through at-risk to have full-time at all of our buildings.
So it's relatively new, the full-time is.
The full-time SRS at the elementaries. Is that correct, Theron?
Yeah, it's new since 2016 because they were cut back to half-time from full-time
Okay.
after the 15-16 school year, I think.
and then we had a liaison scheduled for Miller that hasn't come to fruition yet, and that's included in this as well?
Well, right now,
We have
Ryan.
a juvenile court liaison at Miller.
You're talking about
Right, no, you're talking about a
police.
school resource,
Oh,
a
I'm
police
talking about a
officer.
school resource
Yeah.
officer. Okay.
And so that position was initially funded through a COPS grant, and it was implemented for a very short period of time, but due to short staffing in the police department, they had to pull that position back, and they had to send back the grant, basically.
Thank you, Sean, for the clarification between the two.
So do we have a school resource specialist at Miller?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
an SRS.
Yes.
She was talking about a school resource officer.
Oh, please, okay, yeah, we had one
We
there
don't.
one time. Was-
We had one at Miller last year, and then they were short-staffed, and they had to pull one back.
Yeah. But we do have
But we
a
still have the
juvenile
juvenile
court
court.
liaison.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
One
That's
at Miller that also serves MLA, and then one at the high school.
Okay.
Other questions? Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
So you will recall that last year we asked you to approve, and you graciously did, our ability to offer sign-on bonuses for some hard-to-fill positions. K through 12 special education, secondary math, and secondary science were the positions that those bonuses were attached to. We're back this year asking for a continuation of the opportunity to offer those. In addition to, we'd like to also offer them to any of the positions which were unfilled from this past year. So we start off the year with 15 unfilled positions in different areas. K-4 music, preschool, K-4 teacher librarians, K-12 ELL, and actually I would change that to K-12 teacher librarians. Middle school, dual language, social studies, and K-4 Title I. We were able to use ESSER funding to help support these bonuses. We would like to ask board's approval for us to be able to have that as a hiring tool and a recruitment tool for those positions for the hiring season this year.
We continue to use ESSER dollars?
Yes.
So these are still one-time funds for a one-time?
Correct.
This is an awful long list of bonuses, so it's starting to feel more like we're just offering a bonus rather than offering a bonus for especially hard to fill roles.
All of these roles would be considered hard to fill by the state.
I mean, I think every role is probably hard to fill right now in general. So how do we balance between there's a teacher shortage and these specific roles are overly hard to fill more so than just a standard?
These roles require extra certification and endorsements than a regular general classroom teacher.
And these are all positions that we were unsuccessful in filling this past year. We're making do without them right now. The other positions we were able to fill that we had open,
That required extra certifications?
I'd have to look at the entire list. I'm sure there's a handful that may have, but most of them, I mean, every position requires some sort of certification, but there's special endorsements oftentimes attached to many of these positions. We found the bonuses to be helpful in those positions that they were applied last year in terms of recruitment.
And even where some of these are straightforward certifications, as in a teacher might come out with their bachelor's degree and their teacher certificate in this area, they're still hard to fill because we aren't training enough teachers in that area. So even if it's not an extra endorsement, it's still one that's hard to locate.
I mean, I would argue right now that it's hard to find anybody.
And so really the $5,000 sign-on bonus would be an enticement to choose the Marshalltown Community School District over another school district. Yeah.
So are you saying that it should be offered to any teacher as opposed to just these
No.
specialties? Okay. I was trying to figure out where you were going with it. Okay. So.
I think as a board member, sometimes this is very hard to look at, to give away a incentive where we have teachers that have been here a long time. The question I have is, I'm assuming we're giving it all up front is because it's ESSER money that has to be spent now versus we can't give them year 3, give it to them, correct?
Correct. We have to have ESSER spent by June 30th of 2024.
And the value, I guess, to citizens, the fact that we will go after that money if they don't stay here 3 years, correct?
Correct.
Correct. That's right there. So what if you had a teacher, for instance, that came in with I don't know, secondary math, and then went back and got, well, I don't know, this isn't even math isn't on here, a different secondary certification, went back and picked up the secondary science. So they're already in the district, but they agree to take that secondary science position. What happens with this?
The only position thus far that we've communicated that we would treat similarly if a transfer request was made was to go from general education to special education.
All right.
Beyond this, is there any other recommendations I'm assuming there's 20, 25 positions open right now.
I don't know what the total number based on the resignations we've had thus far. I just know that there were about 13 left that we did not fill from the beginning of this year.
Is there anything else, anything additional that we can do besides the 5,000? Anything else recruiting wise that you recommend?
Well, we already offer reimbursement up to a certain amount on moving expenses, which is a pretty unique incentive. So I think between having a relatively competitive salary schedule, offering a $5,000 signing bonus, and offering reimbursement on moving expenses up to a certain amount positions us pretty well.
And we're also participating in some of these alternative certification programs with paras and things like that, correct?
Yeah, ESL, I think we approved helping pay for certifications for special education or reimbursements for successful completion of special ed. There's a lot that we're doing to help support teachers that we have in addition to
And so that would
these
move people
incentives.
into these hard-to-fill positions, which would open up positions that are possibly easier to fill.
Could.
So I think this question was kind of asked earlier, but I don't know that I felt like I got a good response to it. So if someone that's already in the district got an additional endorsement that enabled them to be able to now fill one of these roles, would they get the sign-on bonus?
Thus far, the only time we've offered that is special education.
So then the answer is no, except for the
At
first
this
one.
time, yep.
Because they would stay on the same step and same lane that they were in their previous position because they have a master contract.
But they're now filling a need that we are saying is more important than their current role. More difficult to fill.
And is seniority still a thing? Because that used to be a thing when teachers switched from one, let's say they went from science to math, they could end up on a different seniority list. Is that even still an issue anymore?
It can be for seniority lists. Yeah, we'd have to go by the union contract on that.
So that would be another.
We didn't have any teachers take advantage of working towards special ed endorsement in order to switch over.
I think my no comment's probably my best thing to say there.
Yeah, it's a relatively fluid situation, so, once we get a month or two down the road, circumstances could change a little bit. We may be back before you, entertaining something. Our goal is to have high-quality teachers fill all of these positions for our kids, and in not having that, it places a lot of burden on other teachers, on the buildings, on the district, in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs and doing it as good as we can, given we're 13 bodies short or 15 bodies short or what have. I mean, essentially in special education, we doubled class sizes, which still allowed us to function for the most part in compliance, but it wasn't ideal. And it's made it more difficult for the teachers, for the kids, et cetera. And of course, we have a para shortage in addition to that, so.
Is other districts next to us, around us, offering these type of programs at all?
You mean the bonuses?
Bonuses or incentives, what do you want to call it?
Yes.
Okay.
Who else is doing that?
I don't know
Altamir's
about
doing it.
immediately around us, but across the state, there are districts that are doing it.
So we're going to be competitive in our area, Marshall County. Is that what I'm hearing?
By offering the
No, I don't have a list of everybody that's doing this. I don't know if such a list exists. I know of other districts that are doing it, so we're not alone in that regard. I would say we're probably alone in offering reimbursement for moving expenses. That's a pretty unique offer for classroom teachers. So, but yeah, I mean, to Leah's point, everybody's struggling to to a certain extent, some more, some less than us, but everybody's struggling to find high-quality teachers, and so it's a very competitive market now, and we're asking to continue to be as competitive as we can by continuing to offer this in the positions that we've had the most difficulty filling.
Randy, did you say South Tama is one school that you know is doing it?
South Tama is doing this, yes.
Well, I know Marshalltown, at least when I worked here, we paid better than the surrounding districts. So if we're already paying better and we're offering this, it should make us pretty competitive.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the $5,000 sign-on incentive for full-time teaching positions as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 5-1.
Next topic probably should have titled differently. We could have called it the tridemic stipend proposal. As you know, we had to shut down a couple days last week due to student and staff illnesses, and even though we were able to return to school today, we're really not in a lot better position than we were, unfortunately, when we ended last week. I think this morning, first thing, we had 61 certified staff gone, either for one reason or another. I'm confident some of that number probably grew during the day, is very comparable to where we were at the end of last week. A little bit less, but not a lot less. And student-wise, I don't know the exact number, but I do know that once again, similar to the end of last week, 5 of our 6 elementary schools had to be reported to the Department of Public Health for having 10% of the students gone. One school got a little bit better, and one school got a little bit worse, so they just kind of traded places. But it continues to be a challenge, just as it had been the last couple years, when you couple shortage of staff with significant absences of staff, and just to give you an illustration, I think it was Wednesday of last week, we started off the day with, I think it was 64 certified staff gone, 38 of which required substitute teachers, 13 of which we've had substitutes for. So 24, 25 or so teaching positions had to be filled by other teachers serving during their planning times, during their lunch times, during, principals, district, teacher leaders, administrators, et cetera, filling in the classrooms. And that is continued to be something that has to happen in order to keep the ship afloat, so to speak, in these circumstances. So similar to last year, in order, in a small way, just to recognize those extra efforts that are being made, we're recommending that a stipend be provided to all employees equivalent to 1 day per diem or prorated, depending on when they started employment for us, if it wasn't at the very beginning of the school year, and also assuming that they're working for us through at least December 29th of this year, equivalent to 1 day per diem. And that this was the same proposal that we made last year to you for similar reasons.
I think it makes sense because I know it really stresses these teachers out when they're covering for other teachers during their preps and their lunches. It can make it very difficult to run the school day, get back to parents. I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
Any other comments, questions?
Once again, ESSER funding will be used to support this as well.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, is there a motion to approve the use of ESSER funds to provide a COVID-19 stipend to employees as presented?
Move for approval.
Second.
Hernandez, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Randy.
As Shauna presented earlier in the meeting, our at-risk program for the upcoming year, we're looking at about a $1.5 million request in front of you tonight. The at-risk program is 100% property tax funded, and being consistent with the last several years. The first step in that process is similar to some of the other requests that you've had over the last month, is we have to request a spending authority from the SBRC. That's the first step in the process to give us that authority to levy that for the budget. I don't have anything to add to what's already on the agenda, along with what was in news and notes. So I will field any questions from anyone at this time.
Randy, as taxpayers, they wonder the 1.5 million. Obviously, we've been keeping it consistent last 3-4 years. Is this normal in districts to be this high?
For districts of our size and demographic, yes.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve or to authorize the Director of Business Operations to submit a request for modified supplemental amount for dropout prevention in the amount of $1,565,085?
So moved. Sorry.
Wall, McGinnis. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Kevin. And whoever it was, well, I assume she was still here. I couldn't see her behind the post, but I figured she probably hadn't run off, so.
Okay, just a very quick overview. And it always starts with a budget. That's perfect. We've got a budget for this project of about $5.9 million. We have been working the last month to get tighter numbers as our design is about 1/3 complete. We've been communicating with grandstand providers, turf field providers. We've spoken with a couple of people about track, and we had one company come today and meet with our committee, and they gave us some numbers previously, and they gave us some new numbers today. But right now, what we've identified is with construction inflation and the other new numbers we continue to get, we have had to identify some projects that could be alternates to keep us within the $5.9 million budget. A couple of them were already going to be alternates anyway. One was a digital scoreboard. We knew that that was going to be a very expensive item, and the hope is that we can do that. We've got that listed as an alternate at the bottom of the page, along with hopefully some refresh we can do on the existing restrooms and concessions building. We would love to be able to replace the visitor side bleachers, but right now we're going to be bidding that as an alternate to give you some cushion so you can make some decisions on bid day. And a storage building that would be constructed under the bleachers to house high jump pits, hurdles, any kind of items for any of those athletic events. So if you add all those up, you can see that the 5.9 is where we really want to be. That's that number that's highlighted in yellow. The number highlighted in blue, that's what our numbers were back in September, before we really got into the further design that we've completed so far. We've got about 2 more months to put the documents together completely. We're planning an issue date in late February. And because this is a very critical schedule, we're going to be asking for a special school board meeting to basically to award the contracts once we get those bids. That would be March 27th. So it's in between two of your regular meetings, but every day counts in this kind of a schedule where we're trying to work in between the different athletics that are using that stadium complex now. There's also obviously some public hearings that need to be set. We did find that the digital video scoreboard's got a very long lead time, so that's why that is being issued as a separate bid set this week, and plan for a public hearing on January 17th. Hope you'll be setting that as the next agenda item. Then there will be another public hearing that will take place in February for the larger project on February 20th. Anything you want to know specifically about the design? This is really kind of budget driven. We know we want to accomplish as much as we can and keep it within that budget.
I think one of the things that changed as well that you shared in the meeting today was that we moved the ineligible costs as it was related to the tornado safe team room, and especially those things which were part of both projects essentially into this project to make sure that it was taken into account with the current project.
That's correct. And moving those out of that, we have received RFI number 2 from FEMA and Iowa Homeland Security. And what we found was there are still a few more questions that they've got. And one of the best things we noted is if we're going to accomplish that in what they classify as ineligible work, we need to make sure that we've got that in this budget. So that was about $97,000 worth of work, plus the contingencies get added on. So you can see there's a design bid contingency there at the top of what's showing of $336,000 and a construction contingency of $257,000. And then down toward the bottom, there's another $30,000 on the soft cost contingency. So we have a lot of contingency built in. Construction costs have inflated over 25% in the last 2.5 years. So we want to make sure that we're playing this very safe and we can accomplish everything that's there. And we're hoping that we'll be able to accomplish all of these alternates. And I know that there's some other potential revenues, especially for the video scoreboard, that you'll be talking about at a future meeting when we do get those bids back. We had a great meeting with a track company that I've worked with in the past and Dr. Schuette's worked with in the past. They accomplished over 120 tracks this past year.
Wow.
So they're kind of the track experts here in Iowa that we've kind of relied on in the past. Our company does a track, maybe one track a year, or 1 year, 1, and then 2, and then maybe 3 at the most in the summer. So they've done 120. They know their stuff. And they gave us some really good pointers on some design aspects and timeline and budgets. And of course, we had the track coaches involved today too. So we talked about the type of track, and it looks like we might be able to save a little bit on what we've got budgeted here, but I'd rather not reduce the number today. We'll keep what we have, and if we can do it for less, that's great.
So this is the track, and they're making it bigger, right? So this field can be used for both football and soccer?
Correct.
And then they're building this tornado safe.
The tornado safe room the design is still on hold, waiting to see if we get the funding from FEMA. So that component is on hold, but this includes basically a new turf field, a new 8-lane track around it, a new home side bleachers and press box, lots of new paving.
New lights.
All new lighting, new ticket booth, and some other components, new fencing, all new fencing, new field events, track for long jump, high jump, discus, and shot put. And and then some other little associated things kind of around in the stadium complex.
Wow.
Are there any other questions or comments from anybody?
Nothing to vote on, it's just an update. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll stay.
Do you want to stick around for the video board stuff, Kevin?
That was the next item, so,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, you're already here.
Yep, you bet. Kim, we've got some images to show. We don't have these electronically, but Kim can hold up an 8.5 by 11. There are a couple different video board designs that we'll be bidding. One is a base bid for a 25-foot video board. You can see across the bottom, maybe you can't, there's 4 little boxes of text. Those are potential advertising locations. And of course, you can advertise all you want on the video board. So this is really the base bid. And then there's an alternate for an even larger 32-foot wide video board. So when these bids do come in, you'll have decisions to make. Whether first question will be, can we afford a video board? Do we have some advertisers? If so, which video board? And if not a video board, then we'll have a basic scoreboard included in the final bid package that goes out in late February.
But just from a timing standpoint, the decision on the video board has to be made before the bids are in for the rest of the project.
Yeah, we were told by the Daktronics that they're seeing 6-month lead times, and that was a couple months ago. So it may be a little more than 6 months now, maybe a little bit less. But we need to make a decision on it. Unfortunately, you'll be making a decision with the information that you have, and we'll have a little better cost information at that time. So when we come back to you at the February 6th school board meeting, when you have to decide on the scoreboard, we'll have updated costs on the whole project. So, and I suspect that your athletic director will have some information related to potential advertising revenue. We'll put the pressure on him to have that.
Okay. Questions about the video board? I don't know. I think Zach and Leah, you guys are on the facilities committee, right?
I haven't gone to a meeting yet, but yes.
Zach?
I think I've had a meeting yet.
I know we talked about Mr. Agsgrig was going to work real hard on, providing value to the community with the business owners and trying to figure out how to pay for this. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him.
Okay. So, Randy, what's the proper procedure here? What do we need to do, or what's the recommendation here?
Since we're pulling this out, we do need to have a public hearing on that. So what's in front of you tonight is a resolution to tentatively accept the plans and specs for the scoreboard piece of the project. This will all, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the intent is to get the bid documents released here either this week or next for this week for the scoreboard. We are legally allowed to release those bid documents and then set the public hearing for January. So we do have legal requirements to publish notice of a public hearing at least for up to 20 days before the public hearing. So there's a resolution in front of you tonight to tentatively accept the plan so that Kevin and his team can get those bid documents released to keep us on schedule with the scoreboard, and then also set the public hearing for January 17th to meet our legal requirements on that. If you have anything to add, feel free, Kevin, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And that public hearing is just for the scoreboard.
Correct, yes. So we'll kind of do the same song and dance for the rest of the project later on.
Yep. We'll get to do it a couple of times.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
questions from anybody? If not, is there a motion to tentatively approve the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated total costs for the Marshalltown Community School District High School Video Scoreboard Project, and set the time, date, and location for a hearing thereon, and further to authorize the notice of seeking competitive bids on said project? The public hearing will be held at 5 p.m. January 17, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay.
So, go get us some low bids.
We'll get you a variety of bids.
Thanks, Kevin.
Things to choose from. We're not going to end up with this huge electronic scoreboard and no field, are we?
That's the problem.
We have two policies coming back as a first reading, 502.8R, search and seizure, and 706.2 payroll deductions. We have not made any changes to either of those policies since they were reviewed at the last board meeting. I would recommend the board approve and waive the second reading.
Any questions?
No.
Is there a motion to approve 502.8R and 706.2 and waive the second reading?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Karina.
Okay. So, policy 502.9, we're just updating legal and cross-reference. Mark has reviewed, as well as 502.10, the same, update legal and cross-reference. Mark has reviewed.
Okay. Any questions about 502.9 or 502.10? Okay. They will be marked as reviewed.
502.11, no changes, so Mark has reviewed as well. And then 502.11R, it's a simple update on the first paragraph. So we'll mark that as reviewed. And the second paragraph, sorry.
So 502.11 will be marked as reviewed if everybody's okay with that. 502.11R, it seems like it's not really a substantive change. It's just more of a
Looks like
semantic.
specific wording, yeah.
Right.
Volunteers and visitors instead of guests.
Right.
They kind of all mean the same thing.
Okay.
Just elaborate on
So
who the guests
if everybody's okay, I think we can mark that one as reviewed as well with those minor changes. Okay. And
We
then,
have,
Darren,
two-
you had a couple as well.
Yeah, so we're working with our attorneys at Allers to review our good conduct policies and regulations. And 503.4, the policy, we've got one minor change in addition to cross-references to mirror what IASB has, and that is simply to say that students must refrain from engaging activities which are illegal. We added the word immoral, which we're missing, or unhealthy. I would recommend we just mark that as reviewed, even though we added that word. It doesn't substantively change the policy. And then 503.4 R2 are essentially the steps and procedures that are followed from beginning to end when there's been an alleged good conduct violation. Again, we had our attorneys review this and they were comfortable with what we had. So I would suggest marking that as reviewed. 503.4R is currently being reviewed, and there will be some recommendations at hopefully for our next board meeting. Essentially, the regulation leaned very heavily on violations of substance abuse, whereas the policy is really more comprehensive than that in terms of illegal activities. And so I wanted to make sure that there was greater clarity of the types of things that could invoke the good conduct policy beyond just violations of substance abuse. And so I would anticipate that come back at the next meeting.
Questions about, no, I lost the number. 503.4 or 503.4 R2?
Nope, I don't.
They will be marked as reviewed. Adam, you have some communication information for us?
Indeed. Excuse me. Good evening again. Tonight I just had a very brief update for you all on the website project. We've moved into the development stage. One key thing that is taking place now is I am collaborating directly with Carl, our project manager from Juicebox, on basically it's a spreadsheet of our website map as we've planned it, and just the process now begins of going through making sure everything is where it needs to be, and making sure that we have, that the content we want in those pages is going to go there once development is done and once the website comes to life and is clickable before launch. So that's a key step in this process in making sure that we're going to be ready to go at launch. So that's a big part of the work I'm doing right now around the website. As far as events go coming up, we'll have obviously winter break here at the end of the week, and it sounds like it's pretty well timed. Maybe folks will get a chance to recover, get better if they've been sick, and hopefully we can all come back ready to go here in January. So we return to school on January 3rd, or I'm sorry, break-ins on January 3rd. We return on January 4th. And after that, we'll have our next parentguidance.org series, our second in our 6-part series that is scheduled for Wednesday, January 18th. We have communicated with parents about that. They have the link. We'll continue to communicate with parents about that to make sure that we get really good turnout like we had last time and hopefully improve upon it.
Any questions for Adam?
I would just like to give kudos to Karina for all of her translation that night.
Yes.
You did an awesome job. It's
hard.
It is
It
hard.
is.
So thank you
Especially
for your
in the
work.
spot.
Yeah. You did a great job.
Thanks.
What time does that parent night start?
It starts at, all of them will be at, from 5 to 6 p.m.
That's what I thought.
Yep, and they're all virtual.
I think we'll maybe be looking in the spring to have another combination in-person, virtual, maybe two. It was really successful. It was unfortunate that, we had to cancel school the 2 days following because I think that led to a little bit of confusion. But having over 100 participants between in-person and virtual is really about where we land when we try to do these parent and or community events. So I think the people that attended and participated in it were very pleased, and so hopefully it'll grow as we move forward.
Well, one thing I noticed from that event that was impressive to me, having covered many of these kinds of events over the last several years, is that many of our parents stayed at the event after the main presentation. They stayed for our school presentations. And that was, I think all of our presenters did a good job, including Karina. And but that information is not stuff that, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. It is the type of information that we want parents to know these good things are going on. But it's not always the easiest thing to communicate about in a succinct way. And getting people in a room and presenting on it is one of the best ways to do it. And a lot of parents seemed interested in that night. So, yep.
If I had to say something about the translating part, because I'd had to do it, but I would recommend whoever's doing it, for them to have the script ahead of time, just so, I mean, the back and forth and some of the things, some of the terminology is really not something you can translate off the bat. I mean, you have to elaborate on it, so that's what makes it a little bit hard. But whoever would be doing this, I mean, I think it went very smooth, but it does get kind of, you get puzzled a little bit because some of the terminology. So just having the script in front of you in Spanish, so maybe translating it ahead of time. So what Ronnie and what Anel were doing, we're just reading off of it. The translator could be doing the same exact thing, and it'll just go smooth.
Yeah, we have lots of tools we can use
Yeah,
to address
I mean,
that.
this is
So
the first
that's-
time, so I think that was
Yes.
definitely something. Just ran by it.
Zach,
But I will say that during the webinar in the Spanish part in the library where I was at, I did see a lot of our parents, which I thought weren't going to understand the Zoom participation part, and they were. They were on their phones participating and asking questions and doing. And I went around like, "Oh, do you need me to do it for you?" Like, "Nope, I got it up." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, I mean, that part, I mean, how they explained to do it, they explained it very well. So kudos to who did that webinar and how they explained it to the parents to use their phone.
Yeah,
it was very well.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Looking at reminders, remember there's only one meeting in January, and it is on Tuesday, January 17th. And Jan, you have initial review policies for that meeting.
I do, yes.
Just a reminder about committee meetings. It looks like the only one that's coming up real quickly is Equity is meeting this week.
Wednesday, yep.
Committee reports. Zach, anything from facilities that we didn't go over tonight?
They did a great job covering it.
Labor Management Committee met last week. Theron, do you want to talk at all about that?
I think a lot of the time was spent taking a look at some differences in leave provisions for the various unions that are represented under the umbrella, and some discussion about if we can find some common ground on in equity in terms of how different employees are treated relative to those leave provisions, that maybe there'd be opportunity to entertain simply having one support union instead of 4 or 5, whatever we've got right now. But I think for the most part, that's what we discussed.
We talked about that. That was about it. SIAC committee.
I'm on that one. So we covered attendance plans and reviewed the different attendance plans from the different buildings. They're all relatively similar, especially the elementary school level, but kind of had some recommendations. We talked a little bit about, do we share those with parents? And if so, what changes need to be made to those attendance plans so that a parent can look at that and understand what it means for them and their kid? Because that was one of the things that, you know, they put them up in the room, we're talking about this, but really the folks on the SIAC committee felt like, you know, parents should know this information too. Then another thing we covered was conferences, and at our last meeting we had talked about, you know, we had talked a little bit about how effective are conferences and the way we set conferences up. So after conferences in the fall, we had a thought exchange, so very similar to what Miller did, but specific to conferences. And out of that came kind of a list of things that parents maybe wanted to cover or didn't want to cover in conferences. And so we decided we're going to try before spring conferences, the sheets that go out to parents always have this little spot that says, write comments here of what you want to talk to your parent, your teacher, child's teacher about. Well, teachers were saying nobody ever puts anything in there, so they just go through the same thing. So we're going to use that thought exchange to maybe give parents some choices of here are the things that I really want my teacher to cover, so that the teachers can prepare that in advance and have a more engaging experience with the parents during conferences. Does that about cover everything, Shauna?
We also had that flyer that I really liked. That Be a Bobcat, which really highlights our staff here and how long they've been here and what they love about being here. And we talked about possibly adding if they were an alumni, so that kind of will boost some of our staff that are already here and how proud they are and just the pride of being a Bobcat. So I really like that, and that will be pushed out in social media, I believe. Yep. So there's about 40 already staff members that said they want to be part of it, and 50 now. So that's awesome to be able to see their picture and what they love about being a Bobcat and how long they've been here. So that's exciting. We also talked about PD. So that was a...
Some of the results from our PD survey.
Yep.
And just what teachers are telling us and how we use those results to continue to plan to push forward for the next PD day.
Good conversations.
Good. Darren, you want to talk about Acer?
Sure, I even have notes. Acer met today, one of our quarterly meetings. We were a little short-handed as far as people in attendance due to illness and other things, but we had Steve Salzmick from the county was there. He reminded us that there's an open house at 11 a.m. at the old fire station or the new voting center tomorrow to recognize Dave Thompson and Bill Padden, who will be stepping off the Board of Supervisors, and then Jared Heil and Carol Hibbs will be replacing them starting in January. He also mentioned that now it appears they are hopeful, but not holding their breath, that by the end of February, everyone should be back in the courthouse, and mainly it's the courts that are at the Orpheum. They will be temporarily housed at the Coliseum in the transition there. John Hall from the Chamber had some really encouraging information relative to potential future development. He was talking about land development on the north side of town relative to future industry. He was talking about commercial development downtown relative to retail and also at the mall. And then he was also talking about housing, and he said the first person now, after a couple years, has requested the $10,000 incentive to build a new home. And he said that tourism and hotel tax relative to tourism is significantly trending, has been significantly trending upward, and that was prior to the Holiday Inn coming back online in whenever that was, September or what have. So that was looking good. And and he said there was also potential for possibly another hotel being located closer to the downtown area down the road. Carrie Teskey represented Jen Seacrest from the AA. She talked about outgoing Executive Director Sam Miller, who's retiring, and the recent choice to hire Joel Pedersen from Cardinal Community School District to be the next AA Director. Said they've had some nice pool upgrades over at the AA building here in Marshalltown, and they've got a great partnership with Park and Rec in terms of using that facility. She talked a lot about the AA's desire to get more engaged with career opportunities for students. And as an example, she talked about virtual welders that they've been loaning out to schools, including Marshtown High School, for students to use. And then also looking at CTE and or career application of virtual reality as well down the road. And Robin Lilienthal was there from MCC. She said that many of their construction projects from this past year are getting buttoned up. The one thing that was not complete was a new digital signage out on Highway 14. She said the last piece of that project, which will be happening this summer, will be the renovation of Babe Harder Gymnasium, locker room, storage areas, etc. They're looking to go out to bid in March for that. She said they're continuing to work on their construction technology offerings along with local high schools, and are going to be posting for a teacher for that position for next year soon. Talked about the success of their esports program, in addition to Marshalltown grad Amber Lathers being named a national champion or earning the national championship in Mario Kart. She said they're very excited about the upcoming transition of the Orpheum Theater and going to be very interested in how we use that facility. And something that was kind of neat that John Hall said after she, as well as I, talked a little bit about esports was he would love to see us position ourselves to host the state esports tournament. So he evidently has a lot more knowledge than I do about esports, but it was interesting to listen to him. And I think he's right in that, you know, for an in-person event, again, Marshalltown is in a wonderful location to be considered for such an event if that event comes to fruition in the near future. Right now, there isn't a state championship yet, but
Well, and we could pull Amber in and have a national champ there.
right. Well, the nice thing with
Marketing
MCC here and their two instructors in that arena, one of which is a Marshtown grad. They have a lot of knowledge and expertise, as well as a really nice facility. But we talked about how the Orpheum, particularly the Black Box, would be an ideal location, and maybe trying to get McDine on board, you know, since they'd be definitely, I think, interested. So yeah, it was really kind of neat to see the discussion kind of blossom.
Very cool.
Well, what have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
I like the idea of getting books in the classroom. They have a lot of screen time, so having actual books that they can read and hold and turn the page. And they sound like great books, so.
I love how they tie to the curriculum, and I'm kind of assuming that there's some mix of reading level across those books, so students that are more accelerated from a reading perspective can, everyone can kind of learn the same content, but with reading levels that more apply to their current status. And so that's exciting to me too.
They're all grade level. So they're all the reading levels of every selection are on grade level. We wouldn't supply a third grade classroom with second grade level text, if that makes sense for fourth. However, there are some lexicals that are harder than others.
Yep, okay.
I actually had never heard of a thought exchange, and I liked that way of getting feedback from your when you described what was happening there. I thought that's a good way to find out what's really on people's minds. I just thought it was interesting, and I think since one of the issues that I've struggled with since we got on the board is how do we communicate better with the community and the people we serve, I just liked hearing about that.
thought it was exciting to hear from Miller students tonight about the impact of co-curricular activities as well as, those extracurricular activities. Co-curricular are just as important in getting kids connected to school and connected to other children.
Right.
It's great socialization, that conversation that happens. I was really excited to hear about Soler El Dante. Holy cow, if they can get that program to expand, because what they're talking about are issues, are things that students going into the 9th grade need to really have an understanding of what a GPA is and how do you get a GPA and how do you move through and negotiate how to be successful at the high school level, at the secondary level, so that they can go on to post-secondary. So until you have an understanding of what some of the challenges are or what the new acronyms that you're going to hear and just the exposure of getting a grade point average of what that means to be successful first time through with classes and what kind of effort do you have to put into it to get the grades that you really want. And right now there are 9 families that are doing that. I really hope that they're able to expand that into exponentially there, because that'll make a huge difference when they go to the high school.
Yeah, and we had the
Meeting we
opportunity
went to
last year
last-
to go visit, so I think Zach, Jan, Sean, I, couldn't remember if anyone else, but we got to see it in person, so.
Awesome.
It was, and the parents I was on the parent side, and they were very much engaged.
Absolutely. They need to
It
be.
was good.
Do you know if this is a revamp of Juntos? We did Juntos. I facilitated Juntos 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Is this something
I'm not
similar? It
sure.
just sounds very similar, and it's from Iowa State too, so I wonder if that is something.
Was that done at middle school level?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did it with them. I wonder if it's something similar, but it sounds I was also excited to hear about that and how putting it in the lens of the parents in combination with the students is very beneficial.
Okay, if there's nothing else.
Sean, I have, for future agendas,
Yep.
a couple of items, because we're coming so close to really examining the sports complex. I can remember months ago, we had talked about funding sources and what that meant and where we were looking to gather dollars. If we could circle around again and talk about that with regard to the sports complex, where our thinking is where that $5 million are going to come from. What's that going to look like? Just lay it out there for me again at another time. Also, just the scoreboard funding with Ryan is great. If he's going to be looking out there for sponsors, kind of what would an estimated value, how much are we going to be able to raise in the community from folks, so that we know going in what that really looks like with regard to the district's portion of that cost. So we're getting pretty close to trying to make those decisions. So I would like a refresher. Also,
Bonnie, I want to add something to that.
Yeah.
So not just what we think the community is going to contribute up front for that scoreboard, but that ongoing sale of advertising and how that fits in with that revenue stream longer term. What would we do with those funds? Where do they go to? Because we're doing this initial outlay, but then if there's paid advertising that continues, how does that fit in with our overall financials? Sorry, Bonnie.
That's all right.
And I can kind of answer.
It now. I think I'd rather have it when we talk about the whole thing together.
Whole package.
Well, let me just say, because we've been pretty clear about the 5.9 million, we're not seeking outside funding sources to fund that. That was sales tax dollars that were made available through the bids for the HVAC projects coming in $2 million under budget. And then we supplanted $3.9 million of federal funding for what otherwise would have been the sales tax. So we have 5.9 available that has to be spent by the spring of '24.
And that's exactly what I'd like to, that's why I needed to be refreshed, because we talked about it a long time ago. And I think we threw around a number that, I don't know, 400,000 or something like that, that would not be covered, and that was it, out of that 5 billion. But that's what's in my, I'm trying to remember. So please lay it out for me again. And the other, jumping to the Orpheum. You know, there was a letter to the editor in the paper about the use of the Orpheum and preserving the integrity of the Orpheum, of what it started out to be. And so just providing some idea about usage of the space. And, you know, we heard tonight maybe the Black Box would be a nice place to do esports, that kind of thing. So if we're kind of thinking about brainstorming and what are some of the ideas that are floating out around there, and I know from reading the Bobcat News and Notes, you know, choosing a furniture. So there has to be some thought going on about how that space is going to be used. And so if that could be shared a little bit, that would be, I would be interested in that also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody else?
No, Sean, the other thing I had thought of earlier, I would actually like.
So when you said no, you actually meant yes.
Okay. One of the issues, and it's completely unrelated to anything we've talked about tonight, and I had brought it up to Sean and Theron about possibly putting together a policy for cell phone use in schools, in classrooms, by students, because we have a policy for staff. And we don't have one for students. And my thinking on this was that that helps us support our teachers and administrators, because cell phones can be a major distraction in the classroom. But if it's not a big issue, I'm not sure we need to do it. So I'm kind of thinking I'm putting the cart ahead of the horse. We maybe need to do this thought exchange and find out if this is an issue in our classrooms. It does appear to be in most classrooms around the nation, but I have not actually heard.
Yeah, we don't have explicit board policy on student use of cell phones, but we have student regulations in all of our handbooks on what the expectations are relative to cell phone use.
And I don't know if what's happening in the handbooks is enough, if the teachers are feeling comfortable with that, or if they're feeling backed or they're not feeling backed. I don't have enough information at this point to make that recommendation. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Their motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Zach's gone.
Say no. We're adjourned. Have a merry and a happy Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
So I will not be